hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for March 5th, 2018. After 2 years of talking about this team being built, construction of a stadium, the rosters, the coach, now we get to talk about a match, a result, and a win. The second team ever to win their first ever MLS game on the road, LAFC, of course, coached by Bob Bradley, who coached the 1998 Chicago Fire to a road victory in their first official match as well. And to talk about this historical result last night in Seattle, we do have Alicia Rodriguez on the line from Angels on Parade. Alicia, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Alicia, first off, before we get into sort of, I play a little devil's advocate on the win. Before we get into that, let's just talk about what it was like for you as someone who's followed this for a long time to finally have a game day and to put all of the sort of off the field stuff aside and just enjoy the soccer for a day. How was that for you yesterday?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, I'm somebody who, I think anyone who's interested in soccer and writing about soccer likes to cover various aspects of the game, but for me, the reason I got into the sport in the first place was the sport, right? The games and watching the players on the field and waiting for 3.5 years for that moment to come and to finally see it happen, to see a goal in the first game, and then on top of all that, to see a win after 90 minutes was obviously pretty incredible and really emotional, I'm sure.
No, for sure. Okay, let's look at the actual play. And look, it's fair to say Seattle carried most of the shots, most of the attempts after the goal. It was a great goal, but it was sort of a hold on and hope sort of kind of game. But that's to be expected from an expansion team. But I should, I guess, tell you what to expect. Tell me whether it was what you expected. What you saw out there, was that what you expected to see, and what you expect to see moving forward, that type of game?
Well, I think it was a little bit of I don't want to call it an exception necessarily. I mean, we'll have to see what the, sample size looks like after a handful of games at least. But I do think that the strategy to try and be as attacking as possible out of the gate, I definitely anticipated that. I think the movement by the front four, in the opening minutes of the game, that was definitely by design. That was something that they had worked on in preseason. And I think looking at the particular players, Carlos Vela, Diego Rossi, Latif Blessing, and Marcos Urania, these are guys who can interchange, who aren't afraid to drop back a little bit, to move out wide, to come in and run in the channel, make late runs into the box. So I think that was entirely expected. But beyond that, I think once the Sounders kind of took control of the game, you're right. They were very much holding on for dear life. And I think in part it was because I think they had a pretty short squad for this game. They did technically have an 18, although they started the game with only 17 players. I'm not entirely sure if all of those 17 players could have actually gone out and played on the day because there were some injuries coming in from preseason. So, yeah, I think it was a little bit by design, a little bit makeshift. And, they rode their luck for sure, but they did what they needed to do, and, they came out with a win.
One of LA's acquisitions that didn't catch a lot of headlines was Marc-Anthony Kaye from Louisville in USL. Marc-Anthony Kaye started the game and was one of the great pieces of build-up play that led to the goal of Diego Rossi. And for me, Marc-Anthony Kaye was one of the surprises in the game yesterday. I wanted to see from your point of view. Of course, we have the Canadian bias when we're looking at Marc-Anthony Kaye, but you do not. So what did you think of Marc-Anthony Kaye in his first match with LAFC?
Yeah, I think he had one of the toughest jobs on the day because I think everybody knew coming into the season that the midfield is definitely the Achilles heel of this team at this point. People weren't actually sure how they were even going to play. And Kaye, I think, was playing maybe perhaps a bit out of position as kind of the primary defensive midfielder. And he had Benny Feilhaber to help him a lot, and I think Feilhaber played a lot deeper than he has played with Sporting in the last few seasons in order to try and shield the defense as much as possible. But Kay had a few giveaways, but I think overall, considering the circumstances, considering the role he was asked to play on the road against a very good team, I think he came out of it really well, and it's going to be interesting to see, if he's going to be able to fight for a starting position moving forward. I'm not going to say for sure he is or isn't, but I think he definitely did a good job in, putting that first step forward and making a case for himself and potentially making a decision really difficult for Bob Bradley in terms of who he's going to play in midfield moving forward.
Last night was a night of first, and there's a lot of answers and questions from last night that will be in trivia games for the next few years. One of those will be, who wore the first armband for LAFC? And the answer is Laurent Simon. The General was the first ever captain on the pitch for LAFC. What can you tell us about Laurent Simon's performance and his involvement in the culture with the 3252 already and the team itself since he was traded from Montreal?
Yeah, I think Simon's participation in the game itself was a surprise. He hadn't really played much in preseason. He had an MCL injury, and I think anybody who's familiar with those kind of injuries, I mean, there's obviously a range when it comes to those kind of injuries, but those can be kind of tricky. So after hearing in preseason that he had suffered an MCL injury, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, he may be out for a couple of weeks, or he may be out for like 8 weeks, or long, this may linger for a long time. So we were told that he was possible for this game, but, kind of don't really expect to see him necessarily. And, perhaps this was some gamesmanship on the part of Bradley, or maybe, Simon came through during the week and training well, and they decided to take a chance on him. And I think in the end, he came through really big. I think he did a great job in terms of his leadership, which was one of the primary reasons why he was acquired in the first place. His play was strong, and, there was one clearance. It wasn't a goal line clearance, but he made a block in the 6-yard box that was basically on a almost open net shot. I mean, Harry Shipp had basically the entire net to himself. And if it weren't for Simon's block, he almost certainly would have scored that. So he helped preserve the clean sheet. And yeah, I mean, I think he was immense. He was really important to everything. And the fact that LAFC also had a late scratch next to him, Walker Zimmerman couldn't go. And so Dejan Jakovic, another Canadian international, had to step in basically the last minute. That was pretty impressive too. So yeah, that was a big deal. And then for Simon to have kind of gotten into the culture here in Los Angeles pretty quickly, I think has been really impressive. I think we all know, we talked about this last time I was on the show, he wasn't really excited to be traded, in the immediate aftermath, and he's come around really quickly. And I think he's really getting into life here, and it seems like he's all about it, and I think that's really great. And obviously you can see through game one it paid off handsomely for sure.
There was a tweet that went viral a little bit yesterday that made a joke that he thought that it was very impressive that everyone in LA was dressing up in black and gold to celebrate the LAFC's launch, but the red carpet might have been a bit much. So I'm wondering, in view of the fact that it was maybe Hollywood's biggest night going on at the same time, how much attention this got in the LA market?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a soccer follower, you've probably heard about it, but if you're not, you probably didn't. I also think that because it was a road game, it's a little bit harder to, really draw in the coverage. I mean, they had, I think the guy from the LA Times was there at the game and was covering it and everything. But, I mean, I think it's kind of like a soft launch, going on the road for several weeks to start the season. And I expect around the home opener on April 29th, there's going to be a lot of attention locally for the opening of Bank of California Stadium. And, how's this team doing? Wow, look, hopefully by that point they'll be doing pretty well too. and that'll probably create quite a bit of buzz in the bigger local outlets, that kind of thing.
Now, I think we all agree that you can't play a whole season with 19 players on the roster. So what do you anticipate coming in the next, probably in the next month before the window closes? What do you think the biggest areas of concern are, and what Bob Bradley will be doing to address them?
Well, I definitely think they need more midfielders. Just the entire group is pretty light. They're going to get one guy that they've already signed. He should be available for starting next week, and Eduard Atuesta from Colombia, a 20-year-old. So, he may need a little bit of acclimation time, but I think considering the circumstances, he's probably going to get some playing time pretty quickly. But they also just need some more numbers and some more quality in there. I think that's definitely the concern right off the bat. They could also use at least one more center back. Probably as a depth piece, but somebody who's likely to get at least some time, especially considering the health coming into the season of Simon and Zimmerman. I also think potentially they could use another up top striker. I think like I said before, one of the big things about the attacking group is these are all guys who could potentially play striker, but Urania is definitely the person who's kind of the most sit up top of the guys there. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, Bradley opts to sign somebody who's a little bit change of pace or, who can do a little bit of a different role. So they have somebody who's, able to give them some flexibility. So, I don't think that's a huge priority unless they have, Chicharito who's ready to leave or something, come over here right now. But, I think that's possibly on their wish list, but for sure, midfield is the big area of concern right now.
Yesterday, Don Garber and other pundits as well were asked about a Zlatan Ibrahimovic that eventually might go to LA or LAFC. There's been rumors for both clubs, maybe more Galaxy as we speak, but his answer was kind of in a way, it's not if it's good for the league. If it's good for the club, that's the question. And Zlatan might not even be good for an LA club. What is your thought on players that are a little older now coming into this league in 2018? The example of Zlatan, could it be good for an LA club to go get the Zlatan?
I think for marketing purposes, for sure. And I think probably for sporting purposes, yes, as well. Obviously the big question with him is his health. He rushed to come back from the torn ACL, and I think he had an ACL and something else on top of that. So it's a pretty bad injury, and he came back really pretty quickly, especially considering his age. Rushed to get back, but he's, kind of a bit player at this point, which is not really in keeping with him. So, if he can't really do it, then obviously it doesn't make any sense. But I definitely think that he's somebody who can offer something. And I know that the direction of the league is to go younger. Right now, we're in a moment where, players in their prime or players who are just getting started in their career who are very promising are, the trajectory that the league seems to be going down for the most part. And I think that is great. I think that is great in a number of ways. But at the same time, you have guys like David Villa who, he's been an unmitigated success in MLS. And we'll see if this is the year that he can, if he's going to keep doing it, or if time is going to catch up to him this year. But I don't think anybody would say, well, I don't know, David Villa is pretty old. Sounds like a bad idea. He really came through.
Ever.
So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not everybody's going to be like that, but I still think that there's a place for guys who are older, who are of quality. But it's a combination of, staying healthy and effective and, really buying into MLS. And, time will tell if that would be the same for Zlatan. But I have to think at this point he sort of sees the writing on the wall, and maybe a last hurrah in MLS is kind of the inevitability. But yeah, it's up to the teams, and I still have a feeling that the Galaxy are very much interested in him.
We're debuting in the next segment a new concept for the world of soccer. A Ballon d'Or to Ballon, the silver, the bronze, are moments of the weekend, basically. And I'm asking you, Alicia, when you're looking at this first weekend of play in Major League Soccer, is there a moment, one performance, one a positive or negative aspect of this weekend that really caught your attention league-wide?
I think it's going to go under the radar, but for me, I think one of the most emotional moments, aside from all the stuff that happened with LAFC yesterday on a personal level, was Anthony Fontana with the Philadelphia Union. This is I think he's 18 years old, homegrown player, had to start as the number 10 for them, and that's been a point of contention there all season. People have been ragging on the fact that this kid is going to come in and play, presumably the playmaker spot for a team that really needs an upgrade in quality. And, I don't know if necessarily he felt the pressure, but certainly it's a pretty tough spot to put a kid into. He scores a goal in his debut, and for me, the celebration was so spontaneous. I mean, he looked so excited to have performed in that game. They won the game. He scored the winning goal. You couldn't really ask for much more for a debut, and for it to come from a kid who came through the academy there and, performed, in a pretty big situation, I think was really great. And just that joy that he showed was really fantastic. And I think kind of one of those moments that you want to remember for a long time.
Alicia, I promise this will be the last time I ever utter the words Chivas USA to you, but I'm going to one last time. Couple things. First off, having myself watched Columbus debut their season, and we all know what's going on there. I'm wondering if you have any advice to their fans on how to deal with this season, if it is in fact their last season. And as a follow-up to that, was there any nostalgia for you yesterday in terms of the old days, or have they completely been left behind?
On the first question, I would say, I think for Crew fans, I think whatever you decide to do this year is good for you, and beyond is good for you. If it really seems like following what looks like possibly a lame duck team, this season is too depressing, I don't think you need to force it. If you want to follow it to the bitter end, like I did, I think that's totally okay too. I think it's okay to listen to your heart, and if it's something that you want to celebrate the final moments, potentially go ahead. And if it's something that it's just too much and you can't take it anymore, I get that too. And it's really hard. It's hard to see it happening in a place that, they've had some really great moments there. And then as for the Chivas USA question, it was interesting because one of the things that I have kind of kept an ear out for over the years is in all of the, broadcasts, I swear just about pretty much every MLS broadcast to this day, Chivas USA is brought up, which is pretty remarkable all these years later. Usually it's in the context of this guy, at one time played for Chivas USA, and it's crazy to see that come up still in 2018. And there was a moment yesterday on the ESPN broadcast when Adrian Healy mentioned Chivas USA, and it was just interesting. It was a little moment. I'm sure it's not anything that probably anyone else really picked up on, but for me, it kind of felt like full circle. It was the closing of the loop, literally. Chivas USA ended with a win against San Jose all those years ago. LAFC play their first game, they win, and there was just a little oblique reference to the old team in LA, and now we're moving forward, and there's a new team.
Okay, Kevin would know it better than I do, but there's still, I think the last Montreal...
The Expos.
Yeah, I think the last Expo just retired, did he not? The last active one or something?
Something like that. Yeah, for sure. And
it's
funny you mentioned that, Duane, because when Alicia was talking, in my mind, I was looking at my studio to my right, where I have a nice little Expos scarf, and I was looking at it. And I was reminiscing. It's crazy you're mentioning it. And Alicia, I felt the exact same way when my dearly beloved Expos baseball team left.
Yeah, it's something that you always carry in your heart, and the world moves on, we move on, but there's always a little piece there.
All right, Alicia Rodriguez, Angels on Parade. Thanks again for all your time and all your time through the years, and we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
And we're back on Soccer Today. Duane Rollins on the line with myself, Kevin Laramee. Duane, the beginning of a brand new segment. It's a new era in Soccer Today, inspired by our Olympic show with our gold, silver, bronze, wood medal of every day during the Olympics, like we did in Pyeongchang. But now, in the world of soccer, the Ballon d'Or, Boule d'Argent, Boule de Bronze, and Boule de Bois.
Boule de Bois, that's my favorite one.
Boule de Bois, Boule de Bois. It kind of rolls off the tongue. Yeah.
For those of you that are inept in French, that would be your golden ball, your silver ball, your bronze ball, and your wood ball. So there you go. Yeah, if you're new, if you don't listen to Five Rings, real quickly, what this concept is, most of our listeners will be familiar with the 3 stars in hockey concept. That's kind of what it is. You're looking at your first, second, and third star of the weekend for MLS, but we're putting them in the terms of gold, silver, and bronze because we all know what those mean in a sporting context. And then we add what we call a wood medal. Yeah. And the wood medal is your most disappointing moment of the weekend or your go to the game or whatever. So think about this any way you want, but we thought the Ballon d'Or would be the way to go with this. So we'll start with this. We usually start negative so we can end positive, Kevin. We rotate. We never tell each other what we're going to say. So it's always a surprise. Sometimes we match, sometimes we don't. So let's just jump in and people will understand it once they hear it. So Kevin, tell me what your
my boule de bois. My boule de bois. And by the way, sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. Sometimes one's wood is somebody else's bronze. So you never know. My boule de bois for the weekend, number 1, is VAR. Of course. Why not? Of course. It was kind of influencing a lot of decisions made by linesmen, especially this weekend. Well, when the game in Seattle and other games as well, you had like a player, he's on the cusp. No, he's not. He's offside. And sometimes it's so close, and you look at the video review and, well, you don't know. And there's that uncertainty that comes into the play, and just the example of Carlos Vela getting fouled. He's on the pitch, then he makes the referee sign, looks at the referee, makes the box, and like, come on, I got fouled. You don't watch it? You don't look at? Go look at your TV. It took a lot less time than I have figured to influence decision of players and linesmen. Referees, it's not necessarily as... I don't see the influence to the referee's decision as much, but I do see in the linesman, and you have like the situation where now if you're a linesman and you're not sure, just let your flag down, leave it down, and the video review will say if it's an offside or not. And that type of thing where you're asking the linesman to take way too many decisions in a fraction of a second, I think it does impede the play more than I was willing to admit in the past. And even though stats are not saying so, in the first weekend of VAR in 2018, multiple games showed us that, well, it does influence decisions of linesmen and officials.
For those of you maybe that listen to our Olympic show and have come on over here to listen to me for the first time, I'll put this out front. Yeah, exactly. I want to fire VAR into the sun. I don't like VAR, and this isn't specific to soccer. I hate video replay in all sports. I think it is the worst thing to happen to sports. We have become rule purists to the point of stupidity, where we've lost the plot. That's my take on it.
Are you saying if your toe's in the crease, the goal's not good? But if your toe doesn't impede the goalkeeper's job, you know what I mean? It's exactly that. It's 1999 all over again. It's Brett Hall's Stanley Cup final all over again, but in the world of soccer.
Makes me crazy, but at any rate, what I will say, and look, I was going to list VAR as my
Boule de bois?
wood. Boule de bois, yeah.
I'm going to say it all week long. It's boule de bois.
Yeah, got to get the French terms down. But by the end of the week, I'll have it. Don't worry about it. But I ended up going a slightly different direction. But the issue, okay, if you're going to do it, at least do it right. And the whole concept is it's supposed to only overrule obvious errors. That's their key terminology, right? Obvious errors. And it's supposed to be instantaneous. And they were doing it fairly quickly in the weekend. I think that was probably the mandate that they got in the offseason, is to be quick about it. But if you're going to do it right. And there was that whole review in the one game where they still got the goddamn call wrong. Sorry, I'm going to have to put that in there. It's like, this is what makes me insane. VAR is, it makes me crazy. I don't like it at all. I don't understand why people are so obsessed with absolute perfection in the way the rules are called. We have lived with sports forever when there have been mistakes. They add to the narrative of the game. Of course, it's upsetting when your team gets screwed over, but over the general course, there's always been an adage that calls even themselves out over a year, and I think that's true. There have been extreme examples.
Yeah, exactly. Extreme examples. You're right. And you know what they say, right? The money's in the rematch. If you're using a boxing ideology. All right. Example. You're having a game and your team gets screwed. Basically, there's a goal that's not supposed to count, but it counted and the team won. Guess what? The next game between the two teams, it's going to be kicked up a notch. The hype, the intensity, the emotion surrounding the game, the conversation, everything around it, because of that little mistake by the referee, the game around saying, look, we would have won if our goal would have counted. And the other one, well, it didn't count, so we won. Who's the best team? I don't know. We're going to figure out next match. Exactly. The money's in the rematch, and we're almost being robbed of those narratives that made some for rivalries, right? Sometimes rivalries start with a goal if it's good or not, or a shovel, or a push, or something, or a bad call by a referee. And I never thought I would say this, but in a way, being always right kind of robs us of the times we're wrong.
Yeah, look, I understand that the world's direction right now is to suggest that these things are going to continue for a while. So instead of advocating for their absolute elimination, which is what I would ideally like, I sort of want common sense approaches to video replay. And if you look at the NFL, for instance, not to bring other sports in, but I think they're informative in this discussion. Yeah. That's the extreme end of stupidity. That is the worst. That I can barely watch NFL games, and that's only one reason. There's lots of reasons why I barely watch NFL games anymore. But
there's a goal. Yeah. Oh wait, let's see 5 minutes ago when the guy walked into the zone if he was offside or not. Geez, it's not even related to the play. Yeah, and it's not even related to the actual play that led to the goal, which should be the beginning and the beginning and the end of a sequence review. It has to be in the same sequence. If it's 20 seconds earlier, well, tough luck. It's like playing advantage in soccer. Once the advantage is played, if you lose the ball, it's your own damn fault. The referee played the advantage. You waited 5 seconds, and tough luck. Sometimes we need tough luck, and that's what That's the phrase. VAR is robbing us of tough luck.
For sure, and look, on the other end of things, I won't belabor this too much because we've talked about VAR a lot in the past. I want to go back in the archives, but the other side of things that I think, and this is weird because they were on the extreme end. They were the absurdity, parody side of things, and they noticed this and they made a move when they brought a new commissioner. And this is going to be one of the few times you hear on this show that we praise the CFL, but I'm about to praise the CFL, the Canadian Football League. Last year, the Canadian Football League was having all kinds of delays, and people were complaining left, right, and center. Finally, when football, gridiron football fans complain about video replay, that video replay has gone too far because that sport is inclined to go that way, right? And they were like, this is too much. So what they did is they scaled it back so that each team got one call a day game, period. End of story. Not you get it right, you get another one. No, you one call. So these, if there's an extreme error, oh my God, that is obscene that they missed that, then they have the ability to overturn it. But by and large, this is not pedantically looking at every single thing. Like the NFL, oh my God, the NFL with the catch thing. Like, come on, man, it is so bad.
No, the ball made 4 rotations instead of 5 in the air. It doesn't count as a catch. All right, let's move to positive.
Go back, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I still think my wood.
Oh, go with your
wood
boule de bois. Boule de bois for Duane Rollins.
Boule de bois. My boule de bois, I'll get that right eventually, is DAZN. Now look, DAZN's probably going to, well, first off, I'm going to give it just a slap in the face for the stupidest name on earth. What is this, 1997 or something? Like it's like idiotic, the name. But
you're in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like something was made, but yeah, I'm a child of the 90s, man. Like that sounds like something from the 90s.
Remember in 1998 when everything was called 2000? Like everything 2000 or Extreme. And it's the same for the Zone. The Zone on YTV. YTV.
They still do M2 on the video games, right? M2K, M2 whatever, but anyway. Look, the Zone. Okay, look, I will fully admit that it is streamed fine on the weekend. The streaming has been okay. That's not what this is about. It's about the price difference in MLS Live and how Canadian fans once again sort of got the afterthought, and they had to scramble to get an out of market service available to them, and rather than having the ability.
Yeah, 4 days before the beginning of the season, which is just tells you all you need to know by how we were involved in that thought process.
Yeah, and look, the Americans get it for $5 a month, so 7 Canadian. We get it for 20 Canadian. So like this is 3 times more expensive over the course of the season. It's twice as more expensive as it was last year. I mean, it's not a ton, and you do get other value on it. And a lot of people that do subscribe to it probably want Serie A and La Liga for sure. Mm. I mean, I watched 3 La Liga games in the weekend, and I normally wouldn't have, which means I'm wasting my time probably. But nonetheless,
the one caveat is DAZN, whatever you want to call it. It involves other channels. So beIN Sports is available electronically through DAZN in Canada. So you don't have to pay for beIN Sports on your regular TV anymore. So that's why I imagine the price point is a little higher. But you're right. I've watched Serie A games. I watched La Liga game, and I would not have watched those games if it wasn't for the subscription that we acquired for the show. Yes.
Look, for some people, it's going to be they're going to look at this as a great value. They're going to get MLS and going to get more stuff in there, and that's fine. And I don't begrudge the fact that option's out there. But what I do think is unfortunate is there isn't an ability anymore to just subscribe to MLS Live for those, because I do know people that only care about MLS, that are local fans that have fell in love with TFC. They weren't really soccer fans before. That's what they want to watch. And, they get all the Premier League stuff if they want to get some peripheral stuff on sort of regular cable or, streaming or whatever. But it's a lot of money per month, and I think you're going to miss out in that particular case. And there's also some features that we're missing out. The condensed games are going to be there, but they're 48 hours behind now rather than instantaneous. So that makes it more difficult for people like us. So I just think that it was an afterthought. The price difference is a bit of an unfortunate thing. Why MLS Live couldn't have just offered, or why even, they couldn't have negotiated with DAZN. It is DAZN. That's what they prefer to be called. I didn't know that either. It's most, DAZN.
Then put an O and an E in there,
Yeah, well, spell it out.
Exactly. Just
it's like when the kids yelling at the clouds, when the kids today talk about ship, they're going to ship these people. Is it too difficult for you to say relationship? Like, come on, man. I don't know. Yeah.
Jeez.
Get off my lawn.
Duane, we're not woke enough, We're not lit. We're not woke. That's what happens. We're not woken enough. Let's move to positive. Anyway, Boule de Bronze. Yeah. My Boule de Bronze is Marc-Anthony Kaye. First start for LAFC. Play a great key decisive pass on the goal of Diego Rossi. First goal in LAFC history. It was kind of a weekend of Canadian international, especially in the Montreal and Vancouver games and otherwhere, like Osorio as well. And you had a lot of Canadian players play this weekend, and that is positive across the board. Outside of one Canadian burning another Canadian, we'll get there a little later on in the show. But Marc-Anthony Kaye impressed me in his play, impressed a lot of players, a lot of people, and kind of proved that, it was long overdue. We don't necessarily talk often about the difference of level between USL and MLS, but some players that do play in USL aren't level to play MLS. And Mark Anthony Cage showed that last night against Seattle.
It wasn't without mistakes, but as Alicia said, he was being
of
played a
course.
bit out of position.
You was out of position and being asked to keep it simple and just. But still, I'm not saying it was perfect. It's not a goal here, but still a lot of potential shown.
Yeah, no, it's just good to see him out there too. Two Canadians in the field. I mean, there's an old Voyager. We call him Young Sam. He's not so young anymore. He's working in London right now. That joked yesterday that because he's a Kingston person that gravitated towards Montreal and his sports loving. So he wished the Canadian teams best of luck as they started their season, and then he listed them as Vancouver, Montreal, and the LAFC. So there you go, two Canadians playing for them. All right, that's a good one. I'm gonna go. I think you're probably gonna have this one higher up in your rankings, but I'm gonna go. The kid is okay as my bronze, and that is Alphonso Davies. Yeah, you can make him gold, you can make him silver, you can make him bronze, but I'm going to put him in the bronze spot here. Sorry, what's bronze again?
Boule de bronze. You could say like mix, we're kind of cool. We just went to talk to LA, so we're cool, we're hip. We're just like the Oscars was last night, so boule de bronze, boule de bronze. So we're having a rendezvous with the boule de bronze.
Boule de bronze, there you go. My boule de bronze is going to go to Alphonso Davies. You know what? I'll hold off because I know where you're going to probably put him. So I'll hold off and just continue there. So why don't you tell me what your silver is?
A lot of young players made my my performances, my boule and ballon this time around, and it's all for individual reason. Ken Krolicki from Montreal surprised everyone by starting this game. Nobody expected him to start. He had a great training camp, and he was a third-round selection from Montreal by Rémi Garde, one of the only draft picks that Rémi Garde actually drafted this year, and not trading them or waiving them. And Ken Krolicki deserved and worked hard to get his first pro contract just a few days ago. Then everyone's surprised by his starting 11 position, and the kid is okay, like you just mentioned. The kid was great. He did not play a perfect game, did not do anything spectacular and great, but there's something to be said about being solid, reliable, dependable, and not dangerous, and you're not impeding your team. You're helping your team a little, you're controlling, you're doing your job as a pivoted midfielder to help involve an Edwards on a weaker right side than left side, to help Tider get repositioned correctly, to hold up like a bit of a hold-up play in the midfield, solid, reliable, short passes, not dangerous passes, high percentage plays by Krolicki for a young player out of Michigan State. This was one of the best debut I've seen from a draft pick from Montreal. Not in he scored 5 goals, but he was burned defensively 10 times. No. He showed a solid, reliable, veteran-like presence, and he's very young, coming out of a super draft. I was impressed. I was surprised by his performance, and he deserves my silver medal, even though it's not going to be talked about a lot. Krolicki, very solid in his debut.
All right, that's the silver. How do you say silver again? Argent? Is that how you say it?
Argent. Boule d'argent. Argent.
Bleu d'argent. Yeah, there you go. All right, the blue argent. Yeah, whatever. First off, let me just speak to yours a little bit. When you're talking about college kids, when you look at the ones that have the most successful long-term careers, they're often guys that are just solid. They're guys that just do a simple, solid task, do it well, do it effectively. I think Sam Cronin would be a great example of a guy that's had a very long career that came out of the college draft and really has played a simple game. I think Sam Cronin's on the upper end of the talent level you're going to get out of a draft, but certainly a guy that's not flashy, that's just sort of going to do his job. He's going to do what's on the box, right?
And that's probably why Rémi Garde chose him to begin with, because he's a known commodity, right? If you know your player is not going to give you too much, but you know exactly what he's going to give you, you can put him in and work around it. And I do feel that that's why he was there. That's why he was picked, because he was showing Rémi Garde in game situation and in training that he's going to do what he's told. He's going to be able to listen to the directive from the coach on the sideline and at halftime enact upon it and keep it simple and effective and high percentage. And that's why he was there. That's why he played. And he did what he had to do.
With a high work rate and good fitness too. That's the other key component of if you're an NCAA kid out there. That's I think what NCAA does do well is it creates great fitness and great athleticism. you generally get players there. And if you add to your game just an intelligence, like an ability to understand your limitations and to play within them, then I think that you can have a successful conversion to MLS. I think what happens too often is a lot of these college kids who are used to scoring, let's go Becker here a little bit. I think maybe that's what happened with Becker, is that he came in, for years and thought that he was going to do the same thing he did at Boston, and instead he struggled for a long time to adapt his game to the limitations that he did have, and he finally found his level, and hopefully he finds a team again soon. But nonetheless,
he found his level, but now he needs to find a team. Something else.
I don't know what's happening there. I'm gonna have to investigate that a little bit. Yeah. All right,
he's gonna be with Ottawa now. We all imagine they're all gonna end up in Ottawa.
Yeah, I think he's probably holding out for opportunities elsewhere, I suspect. But my agent is going to go to Artur, the Columbus number 6, the Columbus midfielder. If you listen to and for those that don't know, I relaunched Sober Second Thoughts as a podcast this weekend. You can download that and listen to that when you're done listening to the show if you wish. It is a post-game show for TFC, focused very similar to this style, where I'm giving the stars of the game and so on and so forth. He was my man of the match in the TFC game. Just quietly provided that glue in front of the Columbus backline, a very inexperienced Columbus backline that really allowed them to excel. And that Columbus midfield is stronger than people think. Yeah. And the main reason it's stronger than people think is, I think, because of this guy that doesn't really get a lot of press. But Artur was really a great performer in that game on the upset to start the whole weekend off.
So how long?
It wasn't that big.
Oh, I was going to say, how long before his nickname is now King Arthur? And who's going to be his Lancelot? Is it Pippa? Is Pippa Lancelot?
Yeah, I don't know. But so certainly, if you have a chance to rewatch that game, to keep an eye out for him. He's not a flashy player. He's a guy that's going to play. We're talking about simple, effective players right now. This guy's a little more skilled than that, but certainly a guy that plays a role that's not going to get him a lot of goals this year, but I think is a key component to what Columbus is going to do. And Columbus, they were full measure for the win.
They were.
And again, I encourage you to go listen to Sober Second Thoughts if you wish, and we'll talk a bit more of it in the next segment in the Canadian Review as well. But certainly Artur is going to get my silver for. So let's move to your Ballon d'Or.
My Ballon d'Or for the weekend in Major League Soccer is the kid is good. The kid is great. The reins have been taken off, and the kid has just left, and he's not going to look back. Alphonso Davies is going to carry this team a lot further than people are imagining. And, well, it's now or never, too, because, well, ask Montreal Impact fans. Wonder kids kind of leave without notice. And you never know. And, oops, Barcelona comes calling, and the call's answered, and ba-ba-baloo. But my Ballon d'Or goes to Alphonso Davies. Not just for his assist, not just for his first MLS goal. We forget that he never scored MLS so far. He's been playing the league for a year and a half and still has never scored. He had some assists, he had some good play, but the most of his scoring happened with the national team and in the Canadian Championship and in the Gold Cup last summer. Never had a MLS goal until last night, and it was a worker's goal. He deserved full measure for it. He was there to just tap it across the net. But it's his work rate. It's how fun it is to watch him play. We forget sometimes that it's a game. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun to play soccer. And watching Alphonso Davies it's fun to watch. It's fun to see. It's fun to see him have fun. It reminds me of what this game is about. Smiling from ear to ear, big smile, running on the pitch, losing the ball, running after the ball, getting it back, transitioning. Yeah, and Michael Petrasso, who played right back for Montreal in this game, did see a lot of Davies. He's seen a lot of him. Alphonso was running circle around his teammates of the national team for Canada, but Alphonso Davies proved that not only is he good enough, so he's old enough, but he's better than good enough. And now the reins have been taken off, and Davies has this team on his shoulder. It might be early to say, but Davies is the key for Vancouver's success. I truly believe that. Yes, you do have Blundell. You do have Kai Kamara, who scored, of course, against Montreal, a header. That was for sure, almost. 8 goals in 15 games against Montreal for Kai Kamara. So that's almost a goal every 2 games he plays against Montreal. So that is impressive. But Alphonso Davies, my Ballon d'Or for the weekend.
Kai Kamara is a 1 in 5 player. He needs 5 chances to get 1 goal, and yesterday's game sort of exemplified that as well. So at any rate, in terms of Davies, a couple funny stories on this. Well, one funny story that the Whitecaps have a sponsored man of the match fan vote.
He can't be.
You can't win it because it's Budweiser that sponsors them, and he's not yet of legal drinking age.
So he cannot even pose with the logo of Budweiser, which is why he cannot even be eligible for the vote, because he can't lift the trophy after the game for the photo op. So he's not even available for man of the match. So, but for the first time in a long, he was the official man of the match without being the man of the match.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to try and do this each Monday. While we do our sort of highlights of the season, Lamar player of the week, kind of. I'm just going to let the listeners have an option to pick their Canadian team player of the week. So amongst the 3 Canadian teams playing, who they thought the best performance was. I had a poll out today, which I listed Kamara, Davies, and Mancuso, and he didn't get any votes, by the way, but I had to put an impact in there.
Yeah, Davies was, I believe, probably a landslide, yeah.
Yeah, 86%. Another interesting one, too, real quickly. We didn't mention him, but according to Who Scored and some external kind of rating processes out there, the best player on the pitch for the Impact was actually Daniel Lovett, who I was like at 8.6 on the game. So he got a few other mentions in there and a solid player there. I don't know if you want. Well, you can wait. We can hold on and talk about him in the next segment if you wish.
Exactly. Well, let's just go there. Let's take a small break and come back with our.
Well, no, I haven't given mine yet.
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah, of course. Go. You're Ballon d'Or. You're Boule d'Or.
Yes, David Villa. Well, he missed the pure breakaway, which was kind of amusing, but, that's going to happen. It's very hard to score in a pure breakaway in soccer. I mean, it really is, because all the pressure's on you, the keeper's charging at you, you got a defender running on you. It's actually one of the more difficult things to score on, one of the more difficult positions to score on. But I thought David Villa really did continue to show why he has become one of the most dominant DPs in the league, and NYCFC certainly did lay claim to being a legit contender for the top of the East. I mean, we'll talk about TFC in the next segment, so I'll leave it at that. But David Villa, which is a guy that we talk about a lot and who will probably be talked about a lot in this position this year, was my player of the week. All right, let's take the break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
And we're back on Soccer Today. It's the Canadian review. First Canadian review of 2018 in Major League Soccer. Duane, you want to start with the defending, reigning, undisputed, one effing everything Toronto FC, or the All-Canadian affair?
Well, we've talked a little bit about Montreal and Vancouver already in terms of injured players, so we might as well talk a little bit about the TFC match. And again, if you want to hear the post-game thoughts that I had, the initial post-game thoughts I had, and also the full Greg Vanney press conference, which is actually really interesting. Greg Vanney is one of the few post-game press conferences that you'll hear that really is worth listening to week in, week out, and you can get it other places, I know, but I thought that I would include it within the show for people just to have it in one place. It is worthwhile, and he's very cerebral in how he approaches the game, so it's worth listening to at any rate. But look, TFC lost 2-0. It was probably on the basis of the game fair that Columbus won it. I thought that they were the slightly better team, that they, particularly in the first half, were a bit stronger, were producing a bit more. They had quite a bit more shots. I think I have right in front of me, actually, I have the halftime stats, and they sort of had 7 shots to Toronto's 3 in that first half, and they were really taking advantage of the wind advantage. That was something that, a lot of people will sniff at when they hear me talk about field conditions and winds, but it is a factor in the game, and it was a significant factor on what was kind of a wintry day down at BMO Field with really, really a cow patch as a field. It was terrible. You could see from above where I was, it was just blotches of brown throughout it. Especially the keepers' boxes were, we all played on them as a kid, right?
It reminded me of the mud of the field just around the corner here, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looked like that from above. I don't, probably from field level it looked a little better, but from above it was a mess. So it really affected the game in a lot of ways. And Columbus is a team that likes to put a high press on, that likes to sort of overwhelm and attack in numbers. And they were really doing quite well to just counteract TFC's diamond. And it became pretty clear in the first half that TFC needed to move away from the diamond, which worked very well against Columbus in that second leg. But I think that part of that was the element of surprise. TFC had played the three-man back, the 3-5-2 for most of the season, and then they jump into the most important game of the year, and they moved to the diamond, and everyone was like shocked. But that was in reflection of something Columbus was doing. But now TFC's been playing that diamond for a while, and teams aren't surprised by it anymore. And it allows them, as Greg Vanney says in that post-game press conference, that if you're not able to maintain possession, what it does is it forces it forces those fullbacks back into block defending kind of positions. And that in turn makes it, what a team like TFC wants to play with the ball. They want to play creatively. Instead, they're playing in a counter game in that particular situation because they don't have any width. They don't have any coverage out wide because of the diamond. So they really needed to switch that up. And they did in the second half. And outside of one breakdown, which led to the very quick goal against at the start of the second half, they really were the better team in the second half. So overall, though, it was a game that both, full measure to Columbus for winning, but also get off the damn ledge if you're a TFC fan and simmer down a little bit if you're a TFC hater out there too, because they hit a crossbar, they hit a post, the expected goals were pretty much equal. It was this is not a trend that's starting, just in the same way that LAFC's win was not something that you should bank on. Yeah, this is not a trend. It was just a result that happened to happen in the first week. And the first rule of MLS first week is expect the unexpected.
I guess, right? We forgot about the damn parody. But no, and one thing I wanted to say too, and I know you mentioned it in Sober Second Thoughts because I actually listened to the whole damn thing. I was just like, give it a listen if you want to listen to Duane. Actually, I was listening in just to test the audio quality, and Duane caught my attention. And 30 minutes later, like, wow, listen to the whole damn thing. Maybe I should post it now. But yes, that's what I was doing. But no, you're right. TFC did look like a team that played 3 games in 10 days against opposition. And yes, it was Colorado, but still, it was Colorado in a competitive environment. And now they're gearing up for Tigres this Wednesday, then playing in the weekend, and then traveling to Monterrey to play against Tigres again. So it's not going to be an easy another 10 days for Toronto. A congested lineup. And Toronto's a bit in a very different position than other clubs where this is their part of their season where it's actually like their most congested and difficult competitive games of the season is right now. And they almost get a break, and then it's the Canadian Championship, and then we'll see where MLS leads and the schedule. But TFC's in a very difficult part of their schedule to actually start the season more than we talked about before. And I think we didn't necessarily weigh that into our predictions, and our predictions are at the end of the season, not now. Toronto could be out of the playoff for a few weeks and then just climb that standings with great string of results. So if you're a TFC fan, you don't need to panic, but you just need to keep in mind that Tigres is coming, Colorado just left, and you're part of a very difficult part of your schedule.
Well, look, their next MLS game is on the St. Patrick's Day game against the Impact, which they'll be the favorite even on the road in that particular case. But at the same time, the Impacts are going to be geared up for it. That's your home opener, I believe, correct?
Yes.
It's at the Big O, so it's going to be on the carpet. So they're not going to be able to do the same stuff that they like to do. The Impact, at least in the past, always played well at the Big O. I don't know how they're going to do under the new iteration of it, but certainly it's not it's not a layup game. Like it's a rivalry game. The Impact beat them the last time they played them. The second last time they played them, they beat them. The season ended with
last year's only defeat at BMO Field was against Montreal, and this year as well, it started with defeat, but
in the regular season,
the regular season, yes.
Yeah. So the Red Bulls beat them too, but look, it's not a layup. So there's a potential that at the end of March that TFC could be below the red line for sure. And people will be like, they'll try to make narratives of it because it's kind of, and I say this when I talk about Sober Second Thoughts. One of the reasons that I stopped doing Sober Second Thoughts in written form is because I think that we get caught up in in exact moments rather than looking at global scenes when we try and evaluate, when we try and do game by game stuff. That's why when I decided to do this thing again, that I'm going to do it in the same format every time, so that I'm specifically just looking at that game and I'm not trying to put games in the context of the season, because I think that can be a mistake when you do a single game. You can do 5 games and put them in the context of the season and go, okay, here are some trends that we're seeing over these 5 games. But I think when you just look at one game, like, again, LAFC is the perfect example. You look at that one game, the narrative today is going to be like, what a start, and they're going to show the goal, and it was a great goal. And
Yeah.
And they're gonna say, look at this and look at that, and they're going to ignore the fact that, like, I don't even know how to, like, there was a goal called back that was barely offside. There was a shot that would have been scored 9 times out of 10 by Harry Shipp. Maybe not, because it was Harry Shipp. There was.
So is Harry Shipp his full name, or is the Harry relationship his name? I don't know. I'm all confused now.
Yeah, I don't know. And I was just, when Alicia said Harry Shipp's name, I was like, oh yeah, he's still a thing.
Oh yeah, he got traded.
And
yeah.
I watched the game. Well, I was watching 2 at once, so it was hard to beat.
No, I agree with you.
So you have to look at things that way. Anyway, that TFC full mark to Columbus. That's my bigger takeaway from the game, was just how good the Crew still are, even though they have made some changes, and they're still playing together and playing a good system, and maybe, and the reason, if you listen to our pregame, the reason I picked them outside the playoffs is because I'm not entirely convinced that Precourt isn't going to sabotage them more.
Pretty much, we're not convinced that he's not going to trade Higuain and Arthur and Zardes.
Yeah.
We're not convinced of that. Yeah.
And Zardes, real quickly, I'll leave him at this. This is the Canadian review, but I'm going to end up talking about Columbus here. Zardes was great.
Yeah.
We didn't know what position he was going to play at the start of the game, but he was all over that pitch, and he was sort of floating in and out, kind of playing a false.
He played them all.
Yeah, well, all of them up front anyway. Yeah, he was doing a very dangerous player throughout the game, and certainly causing all kinds of havoc, because as Greg Vanney said in the press conference, they had no width in the first half, and Columbus was killing them. Zardes was floating to the left and cutting in, and Zavaleta didn't know what the hell was going on half the time. He was getting turned inside out. So yeah, it was a great performance and a well coached game by Berhalter and the Crew. So full measure to them.
Let's move to BC Place, an all-Canadian affair in the dulcet tone of Luke Wildman. God, I missed him calling MLS. It's always fun. The season has started when it's an all-Canadian affair. And BC Place, Vancouver, Montreal, 2-1 victory for Vancouver. Vancouver took a 2-goal lead early in the second half. What I'm surprised, though, is how Montreal looked defensively. A lot better than we expected. We all talked about the injuries in the Montreal Impact's backline. Daniel Lovitz showed a great amount of improvement from last year. Last year, he was named Defender of the Year, too. But this year, he is, I don't know if it's actually talking about fitness. It's a different type of fitness, because I don't want to say Lovitz wasn't in shape last year. He was in shape last year, but a bit differently. If you look at especially his face, it's like a longer face. It's like a more aerobic, anaerobic type of fitness, and he could go all game long. Could have played maybe 2 games back to back last night and still be in shape. But you saw him covering the field. The amount of like his heat map was amazing. It was lit. It was woke on the left side, Duane. I'm telling you, Daniel Lovitz played great. The decisive key pass on Mancosu's goal, and almost a decisive key pass on a potential tying goal that just missed just by a few feet, and it was almost an identical play than Montreal's first goal. Yes, Montreal conceded twice, not necessarily anything they could do about the goals. It was Davies creating a lot around Petrasso. Petrasso never saw Davies as much as last night. He saw a lot of gray. Let's just put it this way. Petrasso saw a lot of gray on that right side for Montreal. It was like a highway, but Davies really played great, involved his teammates, was able to create this space for the first goal on that cross, that header by Kamara, and on the second goal, he created the play and was there to finish it too. Alphonso Davies is going to be a force to be reckoned with if you are on the opposing team of Vancouver. But I have to say, one thing that surprised me is the defensive organization of Montreal under Rémi Garde. The less panicky, more confident. Evan Bush as well. You can tell he's been working hard with Joel Batz on every time he step off the line to go to a ball. there was that confidence, the lack of hesitation, which you need as a goalkeeper so you don't lose that fraction of a second that hesitating costs you to get to a ball first or to head it to. There was only one or two times in this game where Evan Bush was out of position and could have been dangerous. He could have even gone to a penalty, but he didn't touch him and he left him clear and the ball went off for a corner. So it ended up great. But I'm saying we're seeing improvement in little details of the game. Montreal a little bit more organized on set pieces against a team that were one of the best in the league last year for set pieces in Vancouver. You do have that aspect of being organized, solid defensively for a makeshift bad line. Raitala was a non-factor, and that's what you want. The center line outside of Victor Cabrera was the weak link in the defense, and he is the one with the most experience with Montreal at that position. So no, I have to say I was impressed by a lot of the play. Montreal Impact defense. Of course, Petrasso had a long night, but I don't put it on Petrasso. I put it on Alfonso. Alfonso is the reason why Petrasso was struggling and not the other way around. And when I'm saying Petrasso, I'm including Edwards too. Because Edwards, if you're working in front of your right back and you want to help him, you kind of have to pick up your man when he's coming. And there's no way Raheem was picking up Alfonso all game long.
Look, yeah, Raheem, if you believe in the advanced stat stuff, he had the worst numbers on the who scored thing. He was a bit isolated out there. It's a tough position to play, especially when
it's Alfonso too. Like when he's coming at you with speed, he's at the worst possible spot because he doesn't have enough space to back up before losing his man to Petrasso, and he can't really go forward because then the speed that Alfonso has, he's just gonna blow right by him. So you're right, he's kind of in no man's land where he's at.
Yeah, so, grain of salt there. Raheem's best skills are moving forward, too. So when you're in a game when you're mostly going back, and I think that most Impact fans will admit that Vancouver had the front foot most of the game throughout this contest, except for maybe a stretch.
Last 20 minutes. The last 20 minutes were on Montreal. Montreal had 100% of the possession in the last 20 minutes, which skewed the stats. The stats finished 50.4 to 49.6 for Montreal. But it's because of the last 20 minutes where Montreal was on the front foot. Montreal could have tied that game if it wasn't for a barely missed shot by Mancosu. Montreal played a best second half than the first one, for sure.
Yeah, no, I thought the adjustments at halftime were well. The first half was pretty much alarmingly one-sided. If you're a Montreal fan,
it was all 11 guys behind the ball and just keep it 0-0, guys. Just keep it like this.
Yeah, and look, as I've said before, as we said in the preview, I think what do you call it? A discovery season.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and certainly there was a bit of that going on there in the first half. But I thought the adjustments he made at half were pretty good. And by the way, is it a rule that we have to say his first and last name, Galdiv, his first and last name every time?
Remy Gard? You can't just say Remy or just Gard? Yeah,
I've never heard anyone say it not as his first and last name combined.
Well, that's because he has it's 3 syllables. It's kind of easy. It's like Remy Gard. Remy Gard. Remy Gard.
Yeah.
Remy Gard. Remy Gard. Remy Gard. Remy Gard. Remy Gard. It's like it's easier than
like a single name.
I don't know. Octavio's Oz. Let's call him Oz. Well, let's just not call him anymore because he's not here. But Remy Gard.
Yes. Although we'd love to have him on the show if he's listening.
That would be hard. Oh my God, the entertainment value on that show. It's gonna go through the roof. Ozzy, call me.
There you go. All right. In terms of the impact, I thought that, as I said, there were things that I liked in the second half. Lovitz, as you mentioned, had a good game. It's a team that has weaknesses, clearly, and Vancouver, especially Davies, Kamara at times were able to sort of break them down and attack them in an effective way. But, you're playing your first game, you're crossing the continent. It's not an easy challenge. That would have been, even if they were firing in all syllables. Cylinders. Or firing all syllables too. Why not?
Sure. Remy Gard, 3 syllables. Firing all syllables.
Exactly. That's why it's in my ad. Exactly. Then it would have been a challenging match. But we should probably talk about the Whitecaps a little bit more too.
Jersey, the gray kit. Well, Petrasso saw a lot of it, so that's why I don't dislike it, but I don't love it either. It's kind of great. Doesn't feel like a Whitecaps jersey. But
I was watching the LAFC Seattle game at the same time, and I kept looking up and getting confused on which team was which.
Do they have YouTube? No.
Well, no, I mean the Montreal and Vancouver. I was mixing them up because Vancouver, I'm used to watching them in white.
Yeah, that's true.
And Montreal, I'm used to watching them in blue. So I'd look up and go, "Oh, Montreal's wearing brown today." What? Oh no. Then the socks would give it away. The fleur-de-lis and the socks were what stretched it for me. But yeah. Vancouver, it's hard to. I don't know how good Montreal is, and I'm not trying to bash the Impact when I say this. I do think they're amongst the weaker teams in the league right now, and so you kind of have to put the grain of salt.
Yeah, I was going to say it's week 1, right? So we don't have a barometer. We don't have one team that we can really evaluate because they just played one team. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so when you look at the Whitecaps play, certainly there's some positives there, and you like Davies. Obviously, we've talked a lot about him. You like the attack. You like how they were getting on the front foot. You might have a little issue with the fact that once they got that lead, they weren't able to slow the lock down, and that would be maybe the issue there. That inability to lock the game down. Yeah, that you allow Montreal back in.
Yeah, and they acquire Blondell, Felipe, other great players too. Donnell Henry was not even, but I think he's injured, so that's why he wasn't in the starting 11. And there was some other injuries there too. But with the trade of Tim Parker, Vancouver is really top heavy in their roster. What I mean is heavy in striker and midfielders, and when it comes to defenders, they're a little bit more thin there. And I think that's why Montreal got the chance to come back in this game, is moments of chaos in the second half that Montreal were able to create some space on the left side with Daniel Lovitz, and they created those 2 moments. It could have been 2 goals. It was 1 goal and 1 miss. Could have been 2. Could have been a tie game. But yeah, I think you're right. It was because of fitness late in the game. Montreal took over the game because of that. You could really clearly tell the difference of fitness between Montreal and Vancouver. And if you have been following what Montreal did in the training camp, they've been running a lot. The first week, not a ball was kicked. I'm exaggerating, but it's pretty much what the players have told us. We didn't really touch the ball a lot when we were in Miami. But it changed since then. But they were running a lot, and you can tell that foundation of fitness was there for Montreal, and they took over the game late. But I think the lack of depth in the defensive area of the game for Vancouver, and they need to reinforce that position with the trade of Tim Parker, and they have $500,000 to do so now, and an international spot.
Yeah.
So you go.
And Felipe will probably be in that midfield role that Tybert was playing. Tybert's the Ashton Morgan of the Whitecaps, right? He's glad that he's still around, but
so true.
But realistically, look, and he's, as they were saying in the broadcast, he apparently had a good preseason, and they wanted to reward him with the start rather than just parachuting Felipe in. But I do think that he'll probably take that role over moving forward, which is an upgrade, with all due respect to offend to Russell. All in all, a good start for the Whitecaps. So you can't ignore a win over a rival in the first game, and certainly they've been on the opposite side of that at home a couple times in recent years. So it would have been nice for them to start the season off on the front foot. But overall, that's kind of my final thoughts. We've got a long show, so that's maybe a wrap. No.
First Monday of MLS season, of course. And Duane, before we say goodbye, it's going to be announced tomorrow, Player of the Week for the first week of MLS from the North American Soccer Reporters Association. Duane, who was your vote for Player of the Week in Week 1?
Well, I think I just named it, but it's Villa. But yeah,
Carlos Vela, and mine is Alphonso Davies, Le Petit Alfonso. And we'll see what this will be announced tomorrow. We'll see who wins Week 1 of Player of the Week. And until tomorrow, you can always follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. You can listen to us live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Usually, sometimes when we have guests from the West Coast, we try to go a little later to accommodate them. But usually, like tomorrow, 10 a.m. at youtube.com/Sports Podcast Network. You like what we do, you like the show, you like the production values and the dedication it takes for Duane and I to watch the entirety of all the games this weekend on DAZN. Terrible name. You're right, Duane. We took a lot of time to watch everything, to dissect, to bring you our thoughts, to bring you what you need every day of the week. But in return, we do need your contribution, your help. You can share the show. If you can't contribute financially, share the show, talk about the show, retweet, like, send us an email saying you like the show, and you want us to continue to continue to to motivate us. And if you can as well, patreon.com/sportspodcast network. $1 a day goes, well, $1 a day, sure. $1 a month goes a long way to give us a hand, to motivate us, to wake up every morning and do the show when our alarm sounds, and to make sure we're all up to date on the news. With your help, we can continue to do so. Patreon.com/sportspodcast network. There's only a handful places left where you can get independent soccer journalism. We are one of those. And until tomorrow, have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.